I want to talk to you about Yerba Mansa essential oil because it's one of the biggest allies in my toolbox. Yerba Mansa accompanied me into the deepest, darkest part of my psyche, a part of my psyche that I really needed to heal when I was battling uterine cancer. A friend of mine had pointed me towards this plant when she found out that I'd moved to northern New Mexico where it's endemic. I distilled this plant and worked with its aromatics, and that's really what I want to talk about here. So, the aromatics of Yerba Mansa are very much like the roots and the earth from which I distilled it. So, let me explain why. When I harvested these plants, I remember feeling the moist, dark, cold, wintry earth that housed these roots. And as I dug into the earth, I connected with that land and the habitat of the Yerba Mansa roots. When we brought the roots back to the earthship where we live at 9,000 feet up a beautiful mountain, we distilled the plant and the aromatics filled the whole earthship. That evening, I was drawn, like the roots, into the deepest, darkest, wintry earth of my own psyche. And I realized that the knowledge in the aromatics or the energy of the aromatics was taking me into a place where I wouldn't voluntarily go because it is my deepest, darkest place, but I needed to go there. I was quite frightened because it was a place of lack of self worth, self disgust, self hatred. And at one point I thought, shit, I'm going to stay here. This is really, really frightening. And as I thought that, as I got to the point where I couldn't really stand it anymore, just like the morphology of the roots I'd harvested that afternoon, where there's a tiny, on every little root I noticed, yes, the roots were inert and all the energy was in the roots, but there was always a tiny little shoot under the earth of white and pink potential, the new shoot that was waiting for the exact right moment where the spring would come and it would come above ground. And in a way, that transformation inside myself was like that morphology. There was something that changed when I thought I couldn't go any further within myself. And the aromatic showed me that I was the one, I was the only one that could heal myself by transforming this self hatred, this self disgust, this lack of self worth into self love, self compassion, and reminding myself that I was worthy. That was the articulation that the aromatics of Yerba Mansa helped me do. And that articulation that affected my emotional, mental, and spiritual being was what I needed to take with me on this journey of healing uterine cancer. So I was forever grateful for this oil. And since then, what I've done is always made sure I have some in my toolbox because it is an anchor. It is a reminder that to become whole, we don't just heal the physical aspects of our challenges and our cancers and our whatever else it is we're suffering from, but we have to go into the deep, dark place that actually is saying this is what needs to be dealt with as well. And if we don't deal with it, then we do get physically ill. And Yerba Mansa helps me to go there. It's a very feminine oil. Like the phases of the moon, there's always a dark phase. Women's cycles, there's always a dark phase. Before our period, for women that are still menstruating, there's that phase where things are never right. And really, it's an invitation to that darker place. And that's how I use Yerba Mansa essential oil. And I would never be without it. It's the most beautiful accompaniment to the dark part of the calendar, of the phases of the moon, and of the psyche.